tonight's thought. There's nothing certain in life but death and taxes. And, oh yeah, neighbors. Yeah, Ben Franklin had it wrong. Or at least he had it 2/3 right. Or he was maybe one of the few people who have ever lived. Or perhaps even the only person who ever lived who was never graced with the presence of a neighbor. But yeah, this is another Ben Franklin quote. I guess you can call it an aphorism. That he said sometime in the 18th century, presumably, along with a lot of other things that he's credited with quoting. He said, "Nothing is certain in life but death and taxes." Now, I know, once again, me taking things literally, he means to say those are the two things in life that you can pretty much count on. There's a ton of unknown variables to life, but you know that you're going to die and you know that you're going to pay taxes. That's going to happen. But just thinking this week, I'd like to add one more onto that list. Again, I'm not trying to take it too literally, but neighbors. We are going to live next to people that we're not related to and we cannot get rid of. You know, neighbors influence our lives, a great deal of our lives. The time that we're not at work, the time that we're not asleep, well, maybe even sometimes when we are asleep, we have to deal with neighbors. They shape our lives for the better or worse. Which one of these is uncertain? But the one thing is certain is that we will have neighbors. You know, even Henry David Thoreau, America's most famous hermit, had neighbors. Now, whether or not Thoreau was a hermit is up for debate. You know, he lived for 2.5 years on Walden Pond, chopping wood and talking to butterflies and writing books, just to get away from it all. But, you know, once every couple of weeks, he would walk into Concord, Massachusetts, like 2 miles away, and he would lunch with his mentor, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women. You know, he had these neighbors. I'm told he got along with them. From Birmingham, Alabama. This is the Midnight Citizen Show. I am your host, Mike Booty. Thanks for stopping by tonight. On Saturday evening, it's dark outside, and yeah, it's good to be here. I've got a constant stream of various world cams on the monitor over here, just showing me what's going on right now on Earth. It's a little after 10 o'clock here, Central Standard Time. And this is weird. Normally this time of year, this very weekend, I would be, you know, counting down the seconds until I have to go back to school and teach high school students on Monday. Yeah, my school started this week, but I wasn't there. I wasn't teaching. I was still in my summer vacation. I'm starting graduate school classes up again next Tuesday, so I've still got like a whole other week of summer. It feels like very weird to be doing this right now, to just be unemployed. Very, very few times in my adult life have I gone without a job, without a paycheck, without health insurance. Well, I talked about that last week. I was able to procure health insurance, but I don't have a job. I'm not employed right now. I'm a full-time student, essentially, getting a stipend through my university once a month. Yeah, I mean, it's just, here I am now. And I knew that this week was going to be weird. Waking up on Thursday morning and just knowing that this time last year I was facing the first day of school. I was facing like 9 more months of teaching students English, grammar and writing and reading and all that. And now like that part of my life is completely past me and over. And the world is still going on. The school is still going on. The bell rang without me. The kids that I taught last year. They have a new English teacher. I was supposed to be their English teacher again this year, but I'm not there. And it's just quite a bizarre feeling to be here right now, and to just know that tomorrow will be Sunday, and there will not be that like typical Sunday crunch of making sure all my lessons are planned for the week and getting grades, things graded and turned in and all that. It's just, it's strange. I know that in a little over a week, I'm going to be facing the Sunday crunch again. But not as a teacher, as a student, not grading papers, but writing papers to grade. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm really excited about this. I mean, I just talked about this again on the show last week, that I just love that feeling of newness, of anticipating a new adventure, and working with new people, meeting new people that you're going to be sharing your days with, and learning things, right? I love the idea of learning things. I know right now college and universities, they're coming under like a lot of scrutiny because of student debt, mounting student debt. One of the big things in the news this week is Joe Biden. Is he going to, forgive billions of dollars of student debt? Because college is, students are responding right now by not going to college because it's just too dang expensive. So they got to do something about it. And so a lot of people are saying, like, I mean, is college really important? Is being a student really important? I mean, I've always enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed being a student, as long as I don't have to, take out any money that I have to pay back to do it. But sadly, for many, many people, that's not the case. And they are being deprived of this like opportunity to go and just spend their days learning things that they may or may not need in life. But no learning, I don't think, ever hurt anybody, right? And I'm excited to just go back into this and do it again here in Birmingham, Alabama. But I was thinking this week that it's weird that I am right now. I'm changing lifestyles, and that goes with my colleagues as well. These people I've been working with every single day, and seeing more than my wife, and on some weeks, are suddenly just not in my life anymore. Like they're there on social media. On Thursday I was on Facebook seeing like social media posts from like all my old colleagues about going back to school and working with the kids, but by and large, I'm not going to see them day to day anymore. These people that I've gone out with and broken bread with, and I remember one day when we had professional development and, the kids were not at the school. So we went into the kitchen and just like, did hot sauce challenges and just made like the craziest, fieriest hot sauces we possibly could. Fun moments with these people that I'm most likely will not ever work with again. I hope I see a lot of them again. But it's just strange that just like that, they're out of my life. Just weird that I'm changing colleagues. That's easier to do than changing neighbors, though, isn't it? Yeah, this is getting back to my larger point. The funny thing about neighbors, these people that you just live next to and really have no choice in the matter of who your neighbors are. I guess it just depends on what kind of a neighborhood you're moving into, what the property values are. But I mean, that doesn't even really matter. I mean, if somebody is living next to you in a house or an apartment that cost about the same amount of money as you make, that doesn't mean that they're going to be the same person as you, or that doesn't mean they're going to be any nicer or any more evil. Yeah, but I mean, the thing about it is with like changing colleagues at work, you can do that. You have the choice. With neighbors, you don't have the choice. The neighbors, they leave you. You do not, you don't leave them. I mean, especially if you like your house or you like your apartment, you want to stay there. Yeah, with neighbors, your lifestyle can change at any moment. At just a moment's notice. You can wake up one morning and look out your window and take in a nice breath of morning air and then be choked by the fumes of a Ryder moving truck, a U-Haul, pulling up outside of your building. Suddenly you've got a new neighbor. And how will things go now? How will this neighbor change your life? I've become a little numb to it throughout my life. Maybe if you live in a house, you're kind of used to your neighbors and you've had some of them for many, many years. Like my parents, actually, this is August of 2022, 30 years ago this month, they bought and moved into the house that they still have now. And they still have the same neighbor as they did when they first moved in there 30 years ago. But yeah, like living in an apartment though, it's obviously much different because people are paying rent. They're not locked into a mortgage or anything like that may keep them there for many years. And so I live in an apartment, so I have had so many neighbors over the last 12, 13 years that I've lived in this building that I've gone sort of numb to even noticing my neighbors. And I don't like that because I have had really great neighbors, and a great neighbor can have such a positive impact on your life. You see them in the street, you feel good that they're there. They look out for you. You know that if Amazon delivers a box to the building, they're going to pick it up and bring it inside so it doesn't get stolen. Neighbors can have a genuinely good impact on your life. I mean, case in point, the first day of my summer, right? This year I ended up coming down with COVID. I got the coronavirus. I survived 2.5 years of working with students in a public high school or a private high school, excuse me. And everybody, my colleagues, the students, they were all getting COVID left and right. I didn't get it somehow. And then the first day of summer comes of my last year of teaching, and I get COVID. So there I am laid up with this terrible virus, and I get a knock on my door, and I open it up, and I keep my distance, obviously, and it's my neighbor, not my somebody who lives in my apartment building, but my apartment building butts up against an alley and across the alley is a residential street with a bunch of houses. And there's this nice older couple who lives in a house actually right outside the Midnight Citizen studio here. I can see their house from here. And I let her know that I have COVID, so please don't open the door, but I talked to her through the glass. And she says that there is this cat that we've been taking care of together. Her and her husband and me and my wife, for several years now. We call him Waffles. And she tells us that sadly Waffles passed away, but was probably run over by a car in the early morning hours, which I knew was going to happen at some point. I even said to my wife last week, or the week before that, that Waffles was getting so old and deaf and blind, and a car could come and the cat would just stand there and play chicken with the car and would not move. And I would have to go out and sort of physically remove Waffles from the alley so that cars would not run over. And so I knew it was only a matter of time, and surely enough, it did happen. And I felt terrible, and I said to her, I feel terrible that I can't come out and help you deal with this and help you, pick up Waffles. And she said, that's okay. And before I knew it, her husband was digging a hole, and now I'm looking at Waffles' grave, right out there. I mean, that's a good neighbor, and it was a sad situation, but it was so good that we had, people there to take care of us. And, one of the reasons that my wife and I are still in this apartment building today is very much so because of those neighbors who actually, their son married a friend of mine from middle school that ended up doing theater with my wife and was a mutual friend. So that was good, right? Now, that being said, we've also, obviously had a lot of bad neighbors, too, in the 12, 13 years or so that we've been in this building. And every single time we have a bad neighbor, and, we'll go out, and this usually happens about once every month or so. We'll go out the back door of our apartment and walk the dogs, and we'll see the dumpster. And there's every once in a while, like I said, about once a month or so, there will be furniture and just trash thrown all over the dumpster. Somebody moving out of our building that doesn't want to take the time or the effort to move all their stuff someplace else. And so they just discard it in our dumpster. And it's a terrible sight because it makes you feel like you're living in a landfill. But I always get a little bit excited because maybe the bad neighbor that I wish would be out of the building is now leaving. So, and yeah, that happens every once in a while. And it's a negative feeling to have, to wish that you could just get rid of somebody, but there it is. They're gone. And yeah, outside in that very alley I was just talking about, where Waffles the cat lived for many years, and we took care of him before he was sadly run over by a car, and where the dumpster is, where people throw all their stuff when they move out, I would like to go at night for many, many years, going all the way back to 2011, and sit in that alley at night and have a drink and smoke a cigar and read a book or watch a movie or something like that. And I would always really enjoy that. It was a nice experience just to decompress at the end of the day from whatever my job was. And, this is a tradition that's been going back all the way to the days of me running my newspaper route. I would, get home from my newspaper route in the morning and go out there and have coffee. And so this is a tradition for me. And for many years, I had a neighbor that was right next to me who we shared an exit to the building. They would have their back door right there. And my neighbor would always come out and talk to me or, see me just in passing. His name was Bob. And I had worked with Bob many, many years earlier at an old company. And I didn't remember him that much. I always saw him in passing. I worked in the warehouse and he worked in the office. And so Bob and I struck up a friendship. I mean, we hadn't seen each other for many years, and it took some time for us to get talking to realize that we worked in the same building. And I said, "Oh yeah, you're that guy, right?" And we talked for years. And eventually, of course, the day came when Bob had to move out. And I'll still keep in touch with him, but it was a sad day when Bob moved out because he was a great neighbor. And, Bob would come out. He didn't smoke cigars, but he would smoke cigarettes, and he would smoke his cigarettes, and I would have my cigar, my pipe, or something like that. And we'd just sit there, sometimes for quite a long time. And just this great moment. And so he moves out. A couple days later, somebody else moves in. Somebody much, much younger than Bob. This girl who's very, very nice and very polite, but she's kind of like all the other, one of the things about living in an apartment as an older person, and I'm not that old. I mean, whatever. I'm going to be 40 next month. Right. But, generally people my age, have had houses for quite some time. That's kind of the typical track of people living in suburban areas, growing up in suburban areas like I did. They get out of college and they usually get a job and they get a house and all that. Now, I got a job, but I never got a house because I don't know. I just always liked the idea that if I need to leave someplace, I can do that, and I don't have like this house to tie me down to it. And I've always had some house phobia, and my wife is kind of the same way. And for many, many years, we've backed off of the idea of buying a house. But anyway, one of the things about living in an apartment building as an older person is you generally get a lot of young people moving in, and like people who are going through having their first apartment, for instance, college students, people who are, who have just gotten out of college, who have gotten a job here in the city and are moving in while they look for a house or something like that. So you usually get these very young people. And the thing about young people who have never had an apartment before, and they've always lived with their parents, or they lived in a dorm with other people their age, is they tend to sometimes be very standoffish. They'll be polite, they'll walk by you, and they'll be nice to you, but they will be very standoffish, not really wanting to like say anything to you. And this happens with a lot of young people who live, because in the middle of the day, if I want to go outside on the steps and read, it's too bright in the alley, so I'll have to go out in the front. I don't have a porch, right? So I have to go out in the front in the courtyard and sit down there under the shade. And neighbors will come by me all the time, and I'll say hello to them and try to and be nice. But a lot of times they won't even say hey back. It's just, it's nothing bad. I'm not sounding like a crotchety old person or anything. But my point being is that this girl who moves into the apartment that Bob used to inhabit, Bob, like a man who was actually much older than I am, and would always talk to me and was open about everything, and really cordial. He was replaced by this very young girl who was nice but would never talk, would never just acknowledge me or anything like that. If anything, if I would say hey to her, and she'd just be like, hey, right. And so that was a little bit heartbreaking, but it was to be expected. And I continue with my routine for several weeks of just going out at night and, having like coffee or having like a little sip of bourbon, maybe having a cigar or something like that. And I would sit out there, and sometimes I would hear this girl in the apartment, and she would be like one time I heard her like screeching, like, ah! And come to find out through all of her rants and everything, she would be ranting to herself that there was like a cockroach walking around her apartment. And, I mean, the screams got so loud that I kind of had no choice. And I went and I tried not to scare her, but I went and knocked on her door and I just said, "Hey, I just heard this voice from inside. Hello?" And I said, "Hey, it's Mike, your neighbor. I just heard you screaming. Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I can come in and kill that if you need me to." She's like, "No." It was just this thing where it's like, just trying to be neighborly, but I guess she obviously is afraid of like a man knocking on her door late at night, offering to come in and help her with something. So, yeah, I mean, but that's all to say though, that, a few weeks after she moves in, I go out one night and I'm about to have a cigar and I look up and there's a note on her door that she's written. She probably doesn't know that she's writing it to me, but it's nevertheless there. And the note says, "Please stop smoking in this alley. The smoke gets into my apartment and I can smell it all the time." So, that was one of those things where it's like, okay, I mean, I guess now all of a sudden my lifestyle is completely changing, because I can't, sit out here anymore. I'm going to have to find something else. I could go to the front of the building, I guess, but there's all these neighbors out there who will come by me and just kind of make it generally uncomfortable because they won't say anything to me. And I tend to be a little bit paranoid when people don't talk to me and I'm right there in front of them. Right. So I end up going out in the back of the apartment building and just setting up a little place there. It ends up actually being kind of nice, So yeah, like, and this is all is to say that, last week I go outside to walk my dogs and, all that. And I look at the dumpster and there's more furniture there, a big box spring mattress, all that stuff. And I see this girl who wrote the note to me. First off, the note is no longer there, and I see her getting in a U-Haul and just like driving out of there like she had just robbed a bank or something. So yeah, she got out of there. Now I can have my alley back, right? Her apartment is completely closed, or empty, I should say. I may rent it and just like have like an extra apartment. Walk over there. I may turn it into a smoking lounge. That might be nice. Yeah, it's funny, because I grew up in a house in the suburbs, and I always wanted neighbors growing up. I was always looking forward to getting my first apartment and having like a zany neighbor, like I would see on all the sitcoms, the zany neighbor trope. Like Eddie Haskell. I don't think Eddie Haskell was a neighbor, actually. I think he was just Wally's friend and Leave It to Beaver. But yeah, Rhoda Morgenstern, for instance. The Jewish best friend who's always coming over to your apartment. Cosmo Kramer on Seinfeld, right? Yeah, there are all these like zany neighbors on television. Steve Urkel on Family Matters. Even wise ones like Mr. Feeney on Boy Meets World. Always part of the storyline. And I always look forward to, I guess naively, having a neighbor because I thought it was going to be great. You would just have like this best friend who like lived right next to you and was always there to like dispense advice or get into crazy situations with you and just make your life interesting. But as of yet, I've never found that to be the case. Yeah, the reality of having neighbors is very different from the sitcom dimension. Yeah, as I mentioned, I've had a lot of really good neighbors over the years. Like Bob was a great neighbor. We had Joan, who was about the same age as Bob, but Joan was a recovering alcoholic. I'm not like disparaging her. It's just that if she were a guest on this show, she would tell you that. She that was part of her regular thing to you, is that every time you saw her, she would give you her recovery story. But Joan was a character who would just like, you would know if she was anywhere within 15 feet of your apartment building. Her voice carried. One time I joked to my wife that they should just like take down those giant tornado sirens and just replace them with Joan. That would have worked. Joan used to keep us up late at night, my wife and I, by making sex videos for the internet in her bedroom upstairs. So that was always nice. And it was a sad day when she moved out. I would go back to the dumpster and I would see like an empty box for a stripper pole in there. And of course, we had Davis, who lived with us for quite a long time upstairs. I had to help Davis move out. Davis paid me to help her move out by giving me this gigantic piece of artwork. If you're watching on Midnight Citizen TV right now, got this gigantic piece of artwork that she gave me for helping her move out. There's a price tag on it for like $600, and she's like, maybe you can sell it. I posted that thing on the internet to try and get it for the amount that was on the price, and I just got ridiculed. It's just a bunch of, I don't know, it just looks like oil thrown all over like a piece of yellow construction paper or something, but I have original artwork now, so that's good, I guess. And yeah, there was Debbie the schizophrenic, Debbie the schizophrenic actually we've had several schizophrenics live in our building over the years. Yeah, there was this one schizophrenic who was living in an apartment across the way from us, across the courtyard, who would go out in the middle of the night. This is way back in 2011 when I was doing my paper route, and I was gone all night long. And, my wife Jessica used to call me in the middle of the night and just say, like, the guy is pitching a fit. And I had to call the cops on him, unfortunately. And he eventually did get taken away. I remember that day because the landlord came over and met the cops, and they brought him out of the apartment in handcuffs. It was very sad. And then another woman moved in who basically was the same exact person, just a woman, to the same apartment a couple years later. And that she did not go as easy. She was really good friends with Davis for a while. She and Davis were kind of in a love triangle with one of the guys who lived upstairs. That's a whole other story. But things went south between them, of course, as they often do between neighbors. And Debbie ended up threatening Davis's life. And then Jessica and I, my wife and I, who we always try to stay out of all this drama. it's just not really something we want to get involved in. But we ended up becoming like Reykjavik or Camp David. We were like, Jimmy Carter brokering peace between, who was it? Menachem Begin and Arafat, right? Yeah, they would both come over to our apartment at separate times, and we would try to like make peace between them. And then eventually Davis moved out, giving me this big ugly piece of art behind me, and Debbie stopped paying her rent, and ended up getting evicted eventually. It took almost a year for her to get evicted because of the tenant rights here in Alabama. She had to go to court with the landlord, and the landlord couldn't evict her after she had like a certain amount of time to like prove that she was going to pay rent or something. I don't know. Yeah, it was wild. And yeah, I had to call the cops a couple of times on neighbors. I hate calling the cops, and I'm not one of these like nosy neighbors or anything like that. Literally a nosy neighbor. I'm not like that. But one time I was sitting outside, just at night, having a drink, and in the apartment upstairs from us, actually the one that I used to live in with my wife when we were first dating before we moved downstairs into the one that we're in now. Into that unit, I heard this guy beating up his girlfriend upstairs in our old apartment and just like slamming her against the wall. It was just horrible. It sounds like I live in a really terrible place. I don't. It's mostly fine most of the time, but if you live in an apartment anywhere, you're going to get, crazy people living around you. And so I had to call the cops, and they came and arrested him. They took him away that night. It just, awful. And that made me very sad because, again, that was the apartment where I fell in love with my wife. A lot of love was had in that apartment, right? And, that's the thing. It's like once you move out of a place, you hope that, like, you give it some kind of a metaphysical presence that lingers over it and enchants it or something like that. I don't know. And that did not happen. I mean, it turned into like a dark, ugly place with a very terrible person inside of it. So, and then of course there was Jeffrey. Jeffrey was a single man living in the building on the third floor across the courtyard. And I never talked to Jeffrey at all. But I think he was older than all the other neighbors I've mentioned. Older than Bob, older than Joan. This is an old man, very solitary, construction worker. He would work at nights. And come home in 2011, 2012, right when I was getting off my paper route, and he would bring in his lunch pail, and always very nice to me. We never had extended conversations, but always said very, very nice to see you, good morning, right? And then one day, Jeffrey just stopped coming in from work. His car was still there, but he stopped coming in from work. And I think somebody at work probably called the police to do a wellness check, and they went into his apartment. He had died up there for 3 days. And sadly, I was going out into the alley one night to walk the dogs and have a cigar, and I found all of Jeffrey's stuff had just been thrown into the dumpster, right? Not because he didn't want to take it with him, but because he could not take it with him. Yeah. So, proof that Ben Franklin was definitely right about death, but he needed to add neighbors to that list, so. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to play some music here and take a break. Sorry for bringing that down, my gosh, but a lot more stuff to cover. Hopefully we'll get back on a good note of positivity here on the Midnight Citizen Show. Thank you again for stopping by tonight. I'll be by after this.
till the break of dawn. Y'all gonna have to sing that song one day and it won't be long. Y'all gonna be dead and gone. Y'all gonna be dead and gone. Y'all gonna be dead and gone.
Well, I know a cat named Whale Willie.
He's got a cool little chick named Walking Nelly.
He can walk and stroll and Susie Q.
And do that crazy hand jive too.
Papa told me you're my home.
You and Hedge, I've got to go.
Willie said, Papa, don't put me down.
They're doing the hand jive all over town. Hand jive, hand jive, hand jive. Do that quick hand jive, yeah.
Mama, look and John.
He's doing that hand jive with Sister Flo.
Grandma can be persistent and time.
Said do that hand jive one more time.
Well, the doctor, the lawyer, and the Indian chief.
They all did that good crazy, baby.
Why I'm waiting, got them all the trees.
When we hear that hand with his feet. Hand jive, hand jive, hand jive. Do that quick hand jive,
Winnie and Nanny got married last fall.
They had a little with don't you know that head's all.
Ah, you know the baby got the mother's crimes.
Doing that hand jive on TV. Hand jive, hand jive, hand jive. Doing that crazy hand jive, jive, jive.
Okay. We're back here at the Midnight Citizen Show. Mike Booty with you. Had a couple of nice songs there from the Free Music Archive.org. We had Daddy Longlegs. The song was called Long John's Jump. And then followed by Hand Jive by the Jurgen 5. Yeah, I felt I needed to do some kind of a salute to Olivia Newton-John, who died last week. Very sadly. I think basically probably 3 generations of American men grew up with Olivia Newton-John as their first crush. I know I did. Yeah, the hand jive, that's a big song in that movie Grease, and that was a nice adaptation by the Jurgen 5. I want to let you know that you can listen to my show elsewhere, wherever you're listening to it right now. It may be Spotify, maybe Stitcher, maybe Apple Podcasts. But you can also find me at mikebooty.com/The Midnight Citizen. You can find this show there, as well as an archive, back issues of shows. Every show I've done since 2011, you can find them there. What else? You can also find me over at the Overnightscape Underground on Sug, ONSUG.com. Me and a lot of other great hosts over there. Watch the show live over at youtube.com/MikeBooty. Don't forget that you can do that too. You know, you can see me doing the show. You can see me showing you ugly artwork that I own on the wall that was given to me by neighbors. You can see the Video Street Video Store, all that cool stuff. It's just the best thing to put on, if I do say so myself, in the background to have on while you're doing the dishes, going to sleep, or whatever you want to do. That wasn't supposed to be dirty. Get your mind out of the gutter, okay? Whatever. I want to look at this really quickly. This is interesting. The Pelham, Alabama Board of Education approves more police presence on school campus. My mom told me about this week. This is she's a former teacher at Pelham High School, and I'm a former student at Pelham High School, as are both my sisters. Pelham High School is just the equivalent of like the country high school here in Alabama. Cow pasture in the back. A lot of development has come up around it ever since I was a freshman there 25 years ago. But back in the day, I used to be terrified of that place, just like scared to hell of it. I mean, for one, it looked like a giant prison. Everybody said so. It was just this gigantic prison on a hill. You could be anywhere at all in Pelham, Alabama. Going down Highway 31 there, or whatever, going toward Helena. And it would just look like, a prison overlooking the entire community. And just as a high school freshman, it was terrifying to go there. Just going there with all these like redneck kids who would come in and they could drive, and they would come in with these gigantic trucks, these pickup trucks caked full of mud from whatever they did on the weekends. They had facial hair. Just everybody was so much bigger than me. It was so scary as a high school freshman. Right. And I actually went there a while back, just kind of went to the parking lot because I was delivering food out to Pelham for one of these food delivery apps. And I ended up just by Pelham High School. I was like, let me go check this out. And it still is just like as this like unnerving feeling. Just, I don't know if you go to your old high school ever, but it has this unbelievably uncomfortable feeling. It really does make you feel like you're just so small, like you're 15 years old again. Right? But yeah, I was looking at this article here in the Shelby County Reporter that my mom was telling me about. That school safety was the subject that took precedent at the Pelham Board of Education. Regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, July 26th. The number one item on the agenda for the meeting was a recommendation to work with the city of Pelham to create police precincts at each Pelham City school, allowing the Pelham Police Department to come to schools throughout the day for Wi-Fi access and a place to do necessary paperwork, thus increasing police presence on campus. So they're putting they're basically turning Pelham High School, a place that looks like a prison, into something of one. I mean, I don't know what else you would call it. I mean, I know it's technically not a prison. The kids aren't prisoners, but they can't leave. They're walking along all day and following a rigid schedule of going to different places in the building. And they're being, monitored at all times by police officers. I don't know what you would call that. I mean, that sounds like a prison to me, right? But I don't know if this is a good idea. Of putting cops in high schools to the extent that, you know, they're going to be based out of that high school. I don't know. This sounds like a sign of the times to me. Just having cops, you know, just a constant presence in the lives of young people. I don't know if that's such a good thing. You know, my mom kind of had a take on it as somebody who had taught for about 38 years, that it might be good for kids to just have this positive relationship with police officers, and that may transfer into their adulthood. And I guess I understand that, but at the same time, there have been a lot of incidents, some of them making the news, and a lot of others you can watch on YouTube of just like police officers, these school resource officers, you know, who were assigned by the police department to go and just provide security to the school all day. You know, they will often use excessive force on students for doing very mundane things like being late to class or mouthing off or something like that. And of course, you know, we look at the school shooting that happened in Texas, the school shooting that happened in Florida. You know, police were on campus and they ran away, or they took their sweet time to intervene with the situation. Right? It's just the whole thing is like an attempt to just provide a little bit of security for the students, but you know, I don't know. At the same time, they're just going to be coming to school following a rigid schedule all day, basically training for life as a criminal. That's to me kind of what that sounds like. I don't know if it's such a good idea. Yeah, but Pelham High School is where I attended school for the 9th and 10th grade. After that, they built a new high school, and I had to go there. But I was at Pelham when Columbine happened. Columbine High School in April of 1999. Everybody was really excited for the new Star Wars film. And yeah, these two kids walked into a high school in Columbine, Colorado, and just like killed their classmates and teachers. And it really did shake us up. It just got us thinking that like it could happen anywhere. And for about 3 weeks or so after that, just police were, you know, in the building all the time, just doing locker checks and random just checks just to make sure that, you know, the kids were on the up and up. And now it's so normal. You know, in my school, I did not, you know, where I taught for the last 5 years, we never had school security officers or police officers come in. But, you know, in the professional development that I was not a part of this week because I'm no longer teaching there, you know, they had active shooter drills. I mean, it's something that we are actively now, as educators, expected to understand how to do, is to what to do with students in the event of an active shooter situation. It's just a part of life now. And in public high schools and public middle school, any kind of school, there's usually a school resource officer, you know, a man who comes in with a gun and a shaved head in uniform, standing around all day long. It's kind of the last line of defense between like a crazy person and children. And so it's a part of life now in America, right? But I do remember, though, that when, I mean, I'm laughing, but I mean, Columbine happened, everybody was so on edge that 2 days or so after it happened, I think it happened within the week of Columbine, I'm sitting in English class one day, first period, I'm a sophomore in high school, and we suddenly get administrators coming through the hallways and coming into the rooms very quietly and just motioning for us to come with them. We were doing an active shooter drill. Only it was not a drill. They legitimately thought that somebody was, with bad intentions, was going through the school. There were no shots fired, no shots reported or anything like that. And it took us a very long time to figure out what happened. But the entire school was evacuated into the parking lot. We were there, and the police department was called. There were something like 3 or 4 police cruisers who came up to Pelham High School, and they went through the school and kind of found out what happened. We found out what happened much later. It's that this terrible, awful smell was going on through the ventilation. It was passing through the ventilation of the school and was making some kids sick. And they thought, because these kids at Columbine had used like pipe bombs, they thought that somebody had set off a bomb somewhere in the school. And it was passing through the ventilation or something like that or whatever. It turned out that like this kid who was actually in one of my classes had brought pepper spray to school that day to show his friends. And apparently, I guess he had it confused with like a can of body spray or something like that. And he just like, psst, just a small little squirt. And it ended up making us having to evacuate the entire school because that stuff, once it gets in the air, it's awful. And so we all thought that we were going to be on the news, on the national news, another Columbine or something like that, Pelham High School in Birmingham, Alabama. But it was not to be. I mean, that's a good thing, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, like, think about that. That was like, 23 years ago. When I was there in the parking lot, the very same parking lot the other day, and just looking at the place, it had changed a lot. They built new wings and painted a different color, and but yeah, it's so strange that in this world, everything changes around you within your lifetime. It gets to this point where, you're just, I don't know, you're like a ghost haunting your old playgrounds, just walking around, just a sack of meat walking around among places where you used to go that are no longer there, but have been replaced by things that are like uglier than ever before. And I'll do this a lot, because I drive a lot. I drive around a lot during the day, and I've always lived in Birmingham, and I'm very familiar with it because I've been here virtually my entire life. I'll drive around the city, and every place I go just reminds me of what used to be there. And almost always it was something that was so much more fun than what is there now. Like in this world, we used to go around, like we used to go places, and we used to do things, and we used to just have fun things to do. And just that I don't really see that happening anywhere. I mean, I've talked about it many times on the show, but just going to the mall, I mean, used to be such a fun experience. There were things to do there. There were fun things to do. And now it's you can't even get a cup of coffee there anymore. It's just a sad place. I don't know if the kids have the same feeling I do. I almost feel like this is a universal feeling. This is not nostalgia. This is like a universal feeling that the world is just, everything that used to make it fun is now sucked out of it. I don't know. I mean, I'm honestly not trying to be cynical or anything. I'm really trying to give a practical, realistic point of view here. That, we used to go places and buy stuff from these places that were open. And now those places have been mown down a very long time ago. And now the landscape is just dotted with giant storage buildings that keep the place that we used to buy. That keep the things that we used to buy. I had to go to a storage unit last week with my mom to help her move a bunch of stuff. And, you know, I was just walking down these long aisles, these corridors of just storage units, and just thinking in every single one of these little storage units is just like, you know, somebody's life. And I wonder how many people bought something from this very spot where they are now keeping it. You know, I mean, the same thing is, I've said it on the show before, you know, we used to buy products, and now that we kind of are the product, aren't we? You know, like all these free services we sign up for on the internet, they keep our data, you know, we give them information about us. We're the product, you know. Plasma donation centers that we go there now. I mean, there used to be like a really awesome movie theater that I used to go to all the time. And now it's turned into a plasma donation center. So you go there and you know, they pay you. Death, taxes, neighbors, and change. That's it right there. Right. Well, one other thing that's absolutely certain on the Midnight Citizen show is that we're going to go down to the Video Street video store and watch some cool videos, right? Yeah, we're definitely doing that. Let's go ahead and do that right now. I'll be back in a bit. This is the Midnight Citizen show.
Scares me. People who don't use their local library. Actually, it's a great place for everything. From watching videos and listening to music to using a computer, even literacy training and family reading groups. And of course, it's still the place to find all the books you could ever want. So check out your local library. Who knows? We might just run into each other.
And now let's go on location. For the last couple of hours, the rest of Hollywood has been getting in the milk and letting out the cat. But for the crew of production number 821, the day is well along. While the city slept, the caravan of trucks was loaded with everything from lights to lunches, from catwalks to cameras, from pins to people. Everything, tons of it. A city on wheels guarded by its own police, all just to bring life to a bundle of typewritten pages we call the script. Grip trucks, light trucks, prop trucks, wardrobe trucks, a truck for cameras, 3 dressing room trailers, a high-lift truck, a boom truck, buses for the crew, busloads of extras, generator trucks capable of lighting over 400 homes like yours and mine. Yes, when Warner crews go on location, they go like the U.S. Army, prepared to stay. 9:30 a.m. Here we are on a mountaintop more than 1,000 feet above the city of Los Angeles, the Griffith Park Planetarium. This is our location, and this is its heart, power. A diesel-operated dynamo that produces 2,000 amperes of direct current and pushes them through 320 feet of heavy-duty cable into the connector boxes and on into this battery of man-made suns. 9:45. The high-lift truck comes down onto the location proper, the planetarium parking area. And here's the camera in position for the first shot. The assistant director's voice is heard.
All right, fellas, let's go.
The first shot of the day is a close-up of Sal Mineo, who plays the part of a boy named Plato. In this scene, he is threatened by a gang of kids. And here are the kids. It's a quick shot, not a very complicated one, but it's now 10:30. There's a schedule to keep.
All right, quiet. Quiet for rehearsal.
There's the producer of Rebel Without a Cause settling a point with the script girl. A producer, you know, is a busy fellow. He's a combination of father, mother, and midwife. The picture is his baby. Oh, Dave!
Hello, Gig.
How are you, David?
Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Weisbard. Mr. Weisbard has been working on Rebel Without a Cause for many months preparing. Is that right?
That's right, Gig. As a matter of fact, about a year before we ever turned to camera. By we, I mean Stuart Stern and Irving Shulman, our 2 writers, and Nick Ray, our director.
That's Mr. Ray, seated to the left of the camera. The big fellow with the curly hair. I think I better explain right here what this picture is about. Rebel Without a Cause concerns itself with young people, boys and girls who don't understand the world, and about a world that doesn't understand them. Okay, Dave?
Close enough.
Now, what's the action here?
Quiet.
Well, in the sequence we're going to shoot today, Jimmy Dean and his friend Plato, played by Sal Mineo, are cornered by a high school gang up here in the planetarium parking lot.
I see, and Jimmy gets pushed around. This scene's a little more complicated. And it gets a more complicated treatment. Different angles, different setups. And the day grows, the light changes. Suddenly, it's high noon. And speaking of movie magic, presto. Swiss steak, string beans, macaroni with cheese, soup, salad, dessert, tea, milk, and coffee. For 300 people, served piping hot on top of a mountain. Pardon me, for 302 people. Here's Natalie Wood, the kind of fresh young face and macaroni-proof young figure that the movie industry is always seeking. And who isn't? Hello, Natalie.
Oh, hello, Gig. Please sit down.
Thank you. How's the food?
Best location food I ever ate.
Well, I must say you certainly seem to thrive on it.
Well, I was brought up on it. I've been eating lunch on the set since I was 4 years old.
That's correct. Natalie's a movie veteran, been in pictures since 1941, is that correct?
That's right.
She's played daughter and granddaughter to almost every top star in the business.
Oh, but I can be a femme fatale, too. Why, in Rebel Without a Cause, I play a very bad girl.
But a very pretty veteran. And if what Mr. Jack Warner tells me is correct, and I'm sure it is, we're going to be seeing a lot of you.
Well, thank you, Gig.
Thank you, Natalie Wood, and I hope you enjoy your lunch. The trouble is, you see, the sun doesn't stop for lunch. It moves right on into the afternoon, racing toward evening. Even at 2:45, shadows begin to form. When you're working in CinemaScope and watercolor, the sun needs help. And shot by shot, the big scene of the day is put on film. A knife fight, played against the backdrop of a city far below. Each line in the script girl's master book represents a new angle, another viewpoint, perhaps a close-up of one of the boys, perhaps a sudden glimpse of a flashing hand, a smile, a lunge. The scene is a challenge, a duel, a dance between two boys in rebellion against the world. The film must tell it all, and as the day marches on, the lines on the typewritten page slowly grow and multiply. 5:45, the same scene, 11 different angles photographed on 11 different strips of film, each carefully numbered. And now,
Okay, boys, wrap 'em up.
the day is done, put to bed, all through. For everybody, that is, but producer David Weisbart. 8:30 p.m., back at the studio, he's still at it, with his film editor, Bill Ziegler.
I reversed those two angles, Dave. I think they're much better.
Good, let's try it.
You see, there's more to making a motion picture than shooting film. You have to make the film tell your story.
What you saw today up at the planetarium doesn't really begin to tell the story of Rebel. That knife fight, for example, is a result, not a cause. The real cause of Rebel is here in what we call our key scene. I'd like to show it to you.
No, I don't want you to go to the police. There were other people. Why should you be the only one involved?
Because I am involved and you're involved. Mom, a boy was killed tonight. I don't see how we can get out of that by pretending it didn't happen.
Now, look, Jim. You know that you did wrong. That is the main thing.
That's nothing. That's nothing. You told me to always tell the truth. You can't turn that off just like that.
But he's not saying that. He's saying don't volunteer.
Just tell a little white lie? Is that what you want?
You'll learn, Jim, when you're older.
I don't think that I want to learn that way.
Well, it doesn't matter anyway because we're moving.
You're not turning me loose from
Well, that's news to me. Just why are we moving?
Oh, do I have to spell it out?
You are not going to use me as an excuse again, Mom. Oh, every time you can't face yourself, you want to move and you say it's me.
That's not true.
You say it's me. She says it's the neighborhood. You give me all kinds of phony excuses. I just want to do one thing right.
In other words, this is partly a story about parents.
It has to be. Good or bad, all young people have them.
You're so right. Thank you very much, David Weisbart, and thank you, Bill Ziegler. Good night.
Good night.
Well, there you have a day in the life of Production 821, otherwise known as Rebel Without a Cause. I'll be back in a moment to tell you about next week's Behind the Cameras.
I haven't seen Rebel Without a Cause in years. I always think of that as probably like the first classic, quote-unquote, movie that I ever saw, I guess. It's from 1955. I remember watching that movie while I was eating a hamburger at a restaurant in San Francisco, California. Went out there on a vacation with my parents in 1995, and they had that movie playing on the TV, and I became totally obsessed with it. And I urged my parents to let us stay there in that restaurant until the movie was over. It was really because of Rebel Without a Cause that I got into a lot of other classic films. But I love though that was an old newsreel hosted by Gig Young, who won an Academy Award for a movie called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? And then sadly died by suicide a couple of years later. A lot of people in that, I mean, James Dean, of course, would die in a car accident just a few months after that was shot, right before Rebel Without a Cause came out. It was his last film. Sal Mineo, who was also featured in that, died in a knife fight, I think. Am I right about that? Yeah, he died. Maybe I'm thinking about Alfalfa. I can't remember. He died. Natalie Wood was drowned. Just that movie was cursed. I don't believe in curses, but if I did, I would point to Rebel Without a Cause, right? Definitely. But yeah, before that, of course, you had Stephen King speaking for the libraries of America. That was the first time I ever saw or was exposed to Stephen King, was that old commercial. Him creeping up on a woman in the library in the stacks and scaring her. Oh, yeah. Before we go tonight, I want to take a toast to someone who died. This show, I did not plan it this way. I promise. It's full of death. I apologize. But, death, taxes, and neighbors, right? But I am going to take a little toast with some Cuddy Sark scotch to Anne Heche, who sadly passed away yesterday, Friday, August 12th, 2022. From being in a terrible car accident. And as I understand, it was her fault. She was speeding. The press has been talking about how this was, just kind of an issue of someone struggling with mental health and all that. Fortunately, nobody else was injured. I know she crashed into somebody's house, and they were taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, but Anne Heche suffered a traumatic head injury and was on life support for several days before she expired yesterday. Anne Heche, has not, been really in the public consciousness for a very long time. I don't know if kids today would know who Anne Heche was, but she was definitely all over the place when I was a kid. Not just because, not because she was a big actress, or because she was a pinup model or anything like that. Anne Heche was famous for being the girlfriend of Ellen Degeneres when Ellen Degeneres chose to come out of the closet and, tell the world that she was a gay, right? That magazine cover, right? Yep, I'm gay. Right? And, of course, there was a very famous episode of her sitcom at the time, Ellen, called The Puppy Episode with Laura Dern guest starred, where she admitted she was gay. It was a huge ratings bonanza. right? Everybody, if they didn't watch that show, they talked about that show because it was such a big idea. I mean, this is how far we've come, right? You know, back in like, when was it? 96, I think, or 97, sometime around there. You know, for just a major network television star to come out of the closet on national television and still keep her career. Of course, the show was canceled not long after that. I know it's easy to be cynical and just say that Ellen did it for the ratings. I don't know, but her girlfriend at the time was Anne Heche, and Anne Heche was she had been in some stuff, but like nobody knew who she was until she started dating Ellen Degeneres, and indeed there was a lot of cynical media attention about Anne Heche. Oh, she's just doing this for her career and all that. And yeah, Anne Heche was in a lot of movies around the time she was dating Ellen Degeneres, and then when their relationship broke up, she just somehow went away. I'm told that she's been in some stuff since then, but for about 3 years though, Anne Heche was like all over the place. You know, I think most famously she played the Janet Leigh character in the 1998 Gus Van Sant remake of Psycho, the movie that he remade Psycho shot for shot, which offended a lot of film buffs and bored a lot of film goers. You know, Psycho. She played the Janet Leigh role in that. So, but I'm going to take a toast to Anne Heche. All right. So raise your glass, and she's gone but not forgotten, right? Yeah, one thing that was riled up in me this week when I found out that Anne Heche had passed away is that she actually is probably a bigger influence on my life than I've ever given her credit for. Not that I've always really cared about Anne Heche that much, but that whole moment in time in the mid to late 90s when Anne Heche and Ellen Degeneres were like walking red carpets and they were on all the publicity magazines and everybody was talking about how gay they were together and all that. You know, that was kind of a big moment for me when I was growing up because it exposed a lot of prejudices in my community. You know, before Ellen DeGeneres came out of the closet, you know, homosexuality and being gay was very, very like taboo to the point where it was not even talked about here in the South where I grew up. Nobody really talked about it. And if it was talked about, it was a sin and only terrible, evil people in San Francisco, California do it. Right. So, you know, that was the line on it. And then when Ellen DeGeneres came out of the closet and Anne Heche was her girlfriend, suddenly everybody was talking about it. And you would go to church on Wednesdays and Wednesday youth group. You know, they would rail against how, you know, evil Ellen DeGeneres is and to not watch the show. And the pastor would talk about it. And, you know, suddenly, like, I couldn't go to Disney World or watch the Disney Channel because Disney was, you know, owned ABC. It was just a whole thing. And it exposed all these prejudices. And I think led me eventually to the point where I just stopped going to the church and eventually stopped really even entertaining the idea of God as something that was that I wanted to be a part of, right? It's like if God is this and just doesn't allow people to live their own lives on his creation, I really don't want a part of that. You know, I don't understand why heaven would be any different. If I'm going to go to heaven, there's going to be all this other bigotry up there as well, because I'm going to be with all these people who claim to care about him, but not getting to. But, you know, the passing of Anne Heche this week made me think about something that I've been thinking about off and on ever since I had this critical moment of decision. When I was probably a junior or senior in high school, just to stop going to, church and give up the whole thing altogether. It was this thing that, like, do I just not believe in God, or am I just like irritated by the people who represent him, by his fans, right? Is God something that I should still think about as being a viable alternative? Is this idea that there is this, monotheism, that there's just this one thing up in heaven, this one entity up in heaven, right? That controls everything and has a plan for everything. Should even if it's not that typical, Southern Baptist way of thinking that I grew up with, should I still entertain the idea that there is a God up there that, like, has a divine plan for everything? And just shut all the other noise out, right? All these, like, annoying people here on Earth who tell me that I can't watch the Disney Channel, or all these people here on Earth that tell me that, like, I support murder if I support abortion and all that. I don't know. It's an ongoing question that I have in my life. That's why we have this tendency as human beings to label people. And I don't know if I'm an atheist and agnostic. I mean, those are all labels. My thing is like, I don't know. I like to keep all my options open. If anything else, so that when I die, I can have my bases covered, right? See, like the vision that I have of heaven is that, you die, and it's kind of like mission space at, like, Epcot Center. Right? You go there and you can go in one line or you can go in the other line, and there's, like, two completely different experiences. I mean, why can't we have that? That sounds nice. Why can't we have a religion that just, is like, do what you want, think what you want. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Just be a good person. That'll be nice. So, yeah, Anne Heche made me think about all that this week. So, I guess. Yeah. But I haven't made up my mind yet about that. And that's one of the reasons I do this show and keep studying. So, and I don't expect to ever make up my mind. I keep wanting to think about things and question them and not just be decisive. Just so I can get the decision out of my way and just go have a cigar, right? Well, thank you so much for stopping by the Midnight Citizen Show. Once again, you can find me at mikebooty.com/The Midnight Citizen. You can watch the live stream of the show over at youtube.com/MikeBooty. You can see my show that I'm doing right now live with the camera and looking at me and all that. The ugly artwork on my wall, but it's original, and I'm selling it too. If you want to buy it at $600. Also find me over at the Overnightscape Underground on onsug.com. You can listen to me on Stitcher, Apple Podcast, Spotify. And I look forward to being with you next week. Keep your eyes open.